saved 3 people in a disabled sailboat off of the coast of North Carolina. The boat was 50 miles southwest of Cape Lookout last night. Officials say they received a notification of a disabled boat.
Well, hi everyone. Welcome to Finding Cloud. I'm Chris.
I'm Janie, and what you just saw was the very unfortunate beginning of our story.
It's pretty crazy. That was 2 years ago now, a little over 2 years, and that was my attempt at delivering our sailboat, a 1974 Bowman 36 named Cloud, from Bermuda to the United States here in North Carolina. But let's back up. My dad is Bermudian, and in Bermuda in the 1970s, he built a beautiful 28-foot Venus, which is a gaff-rigged ketch, which he named Summer's Night. One day, he met a girl from America, and they took off on Summer's Night to sail the West Indies together in the mid-1980s. At some point on that voyage, they made me. A few years later, we moved to the US, and Summer's Night was sold and eventually driven onto a reef by a storm and sank. After about 15 years in the States, my dad returned to Bermuda. There, he found a boat with a badly damaged keel for sale and bought her. She was a 1974 Bowman 36, designed by Holman & Pye and built in England. My dad repaired the keel, among many other things, until his age caught up with him and boat work was no longer a priority. Having always dreamed of following in my parents' footsteps, I decided to buy the boat from my dad and spent the next few years traveling to Bermuda to continue with repairs. In the summer of 2018, Janie and I decided it was finally time to bring her home, continue her refit, and learn how to sail together. Janie stayed home for Christmas, but I hired a captain on Find a Crew and recruited a friend to join us. We flew to Bermuda with luggage of sails and navigation electronics, and a few days before Christmas, we set sail for North Carolina. So I'm sure you have a lot of questions after seeing what we just showed you, and we are going to try to answer all of those in a separate episode dedicated to explaining what happened and what went wrong on that passage from Bermuda. I will go ahead and say that we ended up disabled between 60 and 80 miles out of Beaufort Inlet, and we did have to call the Coast Guard. Thankfully, they agreed to give us a tow, and the boat ended up taking on water during the tow. So those images of the boat filling with water, we weren't actually on the vessel when it was flooding. We were on the Coast Guard boat. So like I said, I'm not going to dive into all the details of that passage. Stay tuned if you do want to hear about what happened there. But we did end up hauling out the boat, and thus ensued a very long and difficult few months for Janie and I.
Seeing Chris return was a huge relief for me after spending about a week watching obsessively the Garmin. And Chris was sending a text message, I think, about probably every night to check in. I was able to see enough while still not knowing any of the important details, and it was incredibly hard and traumatic to be on the other side of that, not having that information.
The whole point of bringing the boat across in December, because I know a lot of you who are familiar with the Atlantic were like, why were you doing that in December to begin with? Well, that's pretty much when we decided we wanted to bring the boat, and we wanted to live on it the following summer so that we could put this house, our house, up for rent on Airbnb. That gave us less than 6 months to refit a sailboat. Hindsight's 2020, and maybe we should have waited a little bit longer and skipped that next season, but we didn't. And when I stepped off that boat, back on land, back in North Carolina, I was immediately filled with a lot of feelings. A lot of regret, a lot of anger at myself, a lot of frustration. and I came home pretty battered and upset. This was my dream, and it felt like it had all come crashing down. And, is this a sign that we're not supposed to do this? Is this a stupid idea? Are we in over our heads? And I think you remember this better than me, the moment that I asked you.
Yeah, I want to make it clear to everybody that when boaters across the spectrum experience a trauma like what these guys experienced on open water, you face a crossroads. A lot of people make the decision to walk away. They make the decision to stop. And there is nothing wrong with that. That is a fine decision to make. And other people decide to keep going. So we were at a crossroads. And there came a night, I think it was when Chris received the engine quote to have it totally pickled, fully redone. An engine that was already almost new.
I was in a dark place.
I heard him call me in, and Chris was in tears at that point, sunken in his chair, saying, "We can stop, we can walk away. I don't think we can do this. I don't think I can do this." And I remember in that moment, after spending weeks of weighing the pros and cons, that was a conscious decision I made to keep the dream alive. I wanted to try to keep the dream alive, and I said, let's try to keep going. Let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing it.
Receptacles.